If I could have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the services here at the graveside for Mrs. Myrna Rosenberg. I would ask as we begin the service, if any of you have cell phones or any other noise-making devices, please turn them off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Jeffrey Weil from Ezra Habanim, the Niles Township Jewish Congregation in Skokie.
Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach atzat risha'im uvderech chata'im lo amad uvmoshav leitzim lo yashav ki b'torat Adonai chefetzo uv'torato yehegeh yomam v'layla v'haya ke'etz shatul al palgei mayim asher priyo yitain v'ito v'alehu lo ibol v'chol asher ya'aseh yatzliach. These are the words of the psalmist, saying, happy are those who have not followed the counsel of the wicked, or taken the path of sinners, or joined the company of the insolent. Rather, Torat Adonai, the teaching of the Lord, is their delight, which they study. They are like a tree planted beside streams of water. It yields its fruit in season. Its foliage never fades. Its fruit always flourishes. Adonai ma Adam v'teda ehu, Ben enosh v'tichach vehu. Adam the dama. Yamav ketzel over b'boki yatzitz v'chalaf le'erev yimolel v'yavesh. Tashev enosh adaka v'tomer shuvu v'nei Adam. O eternal God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you would even be mindful of us? We are all of us just a breath, our days a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up and is renewed, and in the evening it fades and withers. But God, you cause all of us to return unto dust, saying, Shuvu v'nei Adam, return, O mortal ones. Would that we were wise, and would that we understood whither we go from here. For when we die, we carry nothing with us, not our riches, not our glory. But God, you say, Shmor tam urei yashar, mark the wholehearted, behold the upright. Those are the ones who shall find shalom, who shall find peace. We gather today to remember someone who was Tam v'Yashar, wholehearted and upright. She was giving, she was loving, she was small, but she was mighty and strong. Myrna Rosenberg. Please turn in your handouts. You'll find the 23rd Psalm, which I'll first read in part in Hebrew, and then we'll read it together in English. It's on the inside. Adonai ro'i lo exar. Vinot desha yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni nafshi yashuvev yancheni v'magle tzedek l'ma'an sho gam ki elech b'geit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi. We read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The third chapter of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes, familiar verses. For everything there's a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from our embraces, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time to speak. So this is an appropriate time to speak words in honor of Myrna. I will share some words and then her grandsons will be sharing as well. It's interesting that I meet you and then I learn about Myrna this week because I just have been teaching a class, a Bible class, and the story that we just looked at was not a very prominent story about the woman of Shunem. She was a unknown figure except for this one story. It's in 2 Kings. She suddenly feels a very strong desire to attach herself and to help and to provide for what they call an Ish Elohim, a man of God. That man of God was the prophet Elisha. This is Elijah's student and successor. And so she provides meals for the prophet. She even builds a place in her home so he can rest there and sleep there. And it's interesting because the Bible doesn't say what the precedent was for this, like why she decided suddenly to do this. She's an unknown figure. She just has this strong desire to attach herself to the man of God, to the community, and so she does. But we're left wondering as to why. And perhaps the story of Myrna can offer an answer to this mystery. For Myrna also decided at a certain point in her life to attach herself to her people, to a particular community, that would be Lincolnwood Jewish congregation. She became very devoted to the leader there, Rabbi Learfield. But why did she do that when she was still relatively a young woman? It is because she found there comfort and stability. She found a means to express herself, to express her faith. She found joy and she found satisfaction, and she also found an outlet to serve other people, literally to serve other people. And serving others was part of who she was, part of what she was about. So perhaps this righteous woman, Myrna, strong, very much her own personality, very much giving and wanting to serve others, could help us to understand then the motivation of that other righteous woman from millennia ago, close to 3,000 years ago. Myrna was daughter to Oscar and Ray Ruby, sister to Stanton and Arlen. Family was living in Albany Park. She was a devoted daughter, and she was devoted to family for sure throughout her life. She was close to relatives and those with whom, on paper at least, seemed to be a more distant relationship or attenuated relationship, but she stayed close to people. She graduated Sullivan High School, and then she, as a young woman, set about creating a family of her own. She and Sheldon married, had 3 sons, Robert, Gary, and Stephen. They lived first in Hollywood Park in an apartment building or 2-flat. Myrna's parents lived below them. Whenever she went to the store, Myrna would ask her mother what she could go and pick up for her. When Robert was 11, the family moved to Lincolnwood. Myrna worked hard raising 3 sons. She was a good mother. They all grew up and they created their own lives, and they expanded the constellation of Myrna's family. She welcomed into the family Alan and Angela, may she rest in peace, and Wendy and Sandra, of course. And everyone became part of the family, and their families became part of Myrna's family as well. Just as she loved serving breakfast to the Minionaires, that Minion group at Lincolnwood Jewish, she also loved to serve and provide for and do things for her own family. She would crochet for them, knit. She would make them, I think you said chopped herring, generation after generation. She was old school. Perhaps the chopped herring is an example of her being old school. She would also snip out items from the newspaper, coupons, comics that she thought that folks in the family might enjoy or be interested in. And of course, she always had that little something, those little envelopes. Everyone received something from her. It's sort of like a furtive gesture by her at a family gathering. She'd say, "Here, take this little envelope," showing her care, her love, her generosity. She was also the keeper of the family tree and of the family's stories. Truly, and this happens sadly with every generation, much is lost when someone like this dies. It's family stories, information about the family. She loved sharing these stories about her family, Sheldon's family, extended family, others, because she's just so proud of everybody. The stories created a bond, in a sense, from her to them and their families, and for you all to each other. That's what stories actually do. They create bonds. She was proud of everyone, steadfastly devoted to everyone, including her brothers and sisters-in-law, Irma Jean and Joan, their families, and so forth. Myrna was also old school in her maintenance of proper manners and neatness. The very carpets of her home told that story. One could always see on them the vacuum cleaner's neat rows. You might sometimes have teased her for that. She could take it. She was tough. For many people, the final years are rough, and she had some certainly pain with her back, serious back pain. But she discovered also in the last 6 months, years, some positives in her life, some great positives. In the last 6 months, she revealed a side to her that had not always been apparent before. A light side, a funny side, not to say that she was not funny previously. She was funny. She said what was on her mind. She was blunt. That was funny in other ways as well. I'd say maybe a refreshing bluntness. Good. But these last few months also revealed this as a new aspect in her personality, which is great for her. And of course, her great-grandson Jonah, who is here, now just 1 year old, sparked tremendous joy and love for his great-grandmother. And it started before Jonah was born. When Matthew and Andrea married, that's when Myrna began crocheting blankets and outfits, always seeking to do for others, to be of service. And with his arrival, I'm told she even got down to play on the floor. Maybe that wasn't easy. Maybe that's not totally in keeping with her personality, but she was a great-grandmother besought with her great-grandson. Photos of Jonah were from Myrna, as Matthew said, they were like canon texts. And everyone's life truly is a text of sorts, with its own narratives and its themes and its lessons. Myrna's narrative included the story of one not raised in a particularly connected Jewish home, certainly not an observant home, but who came to cleave to a religious community and cleave to its rabbi, which offered her stability and joy. And she served that community with love. There's a picture that attests to that, I'm sure others as well. Her story is also one of a person steadfastly devoted to the people that she cared about, devoted to family, so devoted, in fact, that she, I guess, defined family writ large. She was embracing in that way. Nobody seemed to be marginal. And the lesson of her life, caring, service, old school values perhaps, service to the community that she depended upon, and certainly service and doing for the people that she loved so much. We say, Zichrona livracha, may her memory be for a blessing. Amen. Matthew and Aaron, do you want to share? Sure you can, yeah. Yep.
The story goes that Myrna always wanted a daughter. After striking out with 3 boys of her own, she settled on the idea of a granddaughter. Aaron's birth was hard on her. When she found out I was born a boy in 1985, that's 5 in a row for those keeping score. Word is that she shed tears, not tears of joy. Fast forward to Andrea's baby shower in 2019. Sensing renewed hope, now for potential great-granddaughter, Myrna arrived with 3 large boxes full of blankets, ponchos, hats, and other crocheted goods. Unbeknownst to us, she had been knitting in preparation for this moment since Andrea and I were engaged, and based on the quantity of goods, I wouldn't be surprised if it started earlier. Now, despite the tears at the news of my birth, I never thought of her as one to express a lot of emotion. While she speaks her mind, she keeps her cards close to her vest emotionally. I'll never forget how she lit up when she first met Jonah. Despite being the 6th straight boy born to her family, she beamed like I had never seen before. When she first met him, she got down on hands and 88-year-old knees and cooed and cawed with him for the entire afternoon. He loved every second of it. Like clockwork, we started receiving weekly letters addressed to Jonah, stuffed with diaper coupons. She would call wanting to hear his voice and talk with him. Unfortunately, neither of them were too skilled with FaceTime, otherwise they would spend days together on calls. Over the past few months, as the virus set in and limited our ability to bring Jonah and Myrna together, her caretakers would report that her morning routine would include going through all of the old photographs on her iPad of Jonah, playing and replaying videos. She had a soft spot for a particular short video of Jonah at 6 months, wearing a gray mouse outfit for Halloween, pressing into a down dog position and giving a big, toothless grin. When we talked, she would refer to the specific details in the photos, who his features reminded her of, and how happy he made her feel. She knew each photo intimately and referred to them in conversation with the pride of a young boy showing off his favorite baseball cards, reciting from memory lifetime ERAs, all-star appearances, and jams. Grandma, while I'm sorry we never gave you the daughter that you wanted, or the granddaughter, or the great-granddaughter, I'm glad that you and Jonah shared this last year together and that you brought each other so much joy. Thanks, Maddie. When we were growing up, probably from 1990 to last year, so probably over a span of 30 years, whenever we would see Myrna, we essentially had the same ritual. We would go to Lincolnwood, we would go to her apartment, we'd pick her up, and we would go to Sanders Diner. Then we'd bring her back to her apartment, we'd hang out there for a little bit, and then we'd leave. And I have no idea how many times this happened, but it must have been many dozens of times. And it was every single time we would see Myrna, that's what we would do. It kind of became, like I said, a ritual. And it developed its own beats, right? Like she would always order the same thing at Sanders, always the egg white omelet in the earlier years, and then vegetable plate later on. And it kind of almost became like almost funny because it was so ritualized and so predictable. But I think the piece of it that now that I think about looking back on, that I almost didn't really see at the time, was that every time we came over, and also side note, she had one of those elevators that opened on one side when you're on the ground floor and then the other side when you got to her floor. I don't know why, but I always liked that when I was a little kid. But when that second door opened and you had to turn around because she was on the other side, she was always in her doorway waiting for us. And, you know, I've heard Stuart, you said she had a twinkle in her eye when she talked about her family. And Matt, you talked about the look on her face of joy when she would talk about Jonah. And that was the look I saw on her face when that elevator door opened and she was there standing in her doorway waiting for us just to spend the afternoon. So, you know, she really loved her family. And when I think back about all those times we spent with her, that's what really comes through. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, Grandma.
Shall I ask if anyone else wants to? Do you want me to ask? Do you want me to ask if anyone else wants to?
Yeah, would anyone else like to say anything? Jonah?
Oh, yes, good night.
Oh yeah, I'll add that. Andrea just brought up something that, Myrna was so by the book. One of the things that was one of her like rules. She had these rules, and I think one of her rules was a couple of them were mentioned. One was you always have to bring a gift, so she always brought her envelopes. Never let someone come over unless you give them food. So every time you went to her house, you got food. You got some sprats, some herring. But another one of the rules seemed to be that no matter what time of day or night it was, when you talked to her on the phone, she always ended the conversation with good night. So even if it was 9 a.m. and you were talking to her, she still said at the end of the call, she said good night. So thanks, Andrea.
She opened up the shul, you're saying? At 6:30 in the morning, she opened up the shul? I like that dedication. It's good. Yeah. We'll continue with the memorial prayer, El Mulei Rachamim. El Mulei Rachamim, Shochein Vamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Rakia Masirim, Et Nishmat HaYikara Shalanu, Shahalcha La'olama, Ba'al HaRachamim, Yastirecha V'seter Kenafav La'olamim, B'yitzur HaChaim, Et Nishmata, Adonai Kunachalatam, V'tanuach V'shalom, Al Mishkava V'nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence with the holy and the pure who glow like the light of the heavens to Myrna Rosenberg, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence and within the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Big cover on. After we recite Mourner's Kaddish, we'll do the mitzvah of helping to fill the grave. Because of COVID, we have special restrictions in that regard. There are disposable cups there and gloves. So we ask you as you line up to do it. Take a cup, put on gloves, take a cup, fill the cup three times, putting it into the grave each time, and then throwing out the cup and the gloves. Did I get that right, Doug?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And I had put in, before the lid was placed on the vault, I had put in soil, earth from Har HaZeitim, from the Mount of Olives in Israel, as is customary. It really is a symbolic act that expresses the age-old Jewish hope in a better future for all of humanity. You'll find Mourner's Kaddish in your handouts. Al Mikoma Tavo B'Shalom. May Myrna Rosenberg come to her eternal home in peace. Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gedal v'Yit Kedash Shemei Rabbah. Ve'alma divra chirate v'amlich malchute. Ve'chayechon u'vyomechon u'vchaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivarach. La'alam u'lamei almaya. Yit barach, v'yit tabach, v'yit pa'ar, v'yit romam, v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemei dekudusha, v'richu, v'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'miru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. We repeat these words. Please repeat these words after me. They're customarily said by friends and family speaking directly to mourners. In this case, it would be the three sons who have a virtual presence with us now. So please repeat after me, speaking these traditional words of comfort to them. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'tosh avlei Zion v'Yerushalayim. Now go forth in peace unto life. Amen. You may now come forward to assist with the filling in of the grave.